Hello and welcome back. First episode of 2025. And as you can see, we forgot to change the intro. So it still said Merry Christmas. But Happy New Year. It's 2025. I'm Robert, US. With me, I have my co-host.
I thought you were going to say my name. It's Scruffy Lionel, Winter Scruffy Lionel. It sometimes happens at this time of year. As a matter of fact, I'm going to even throw all the glasses so I can see. I don't have my background and my stuff going on. Had a few issues. Computer died several times. So I am literally just on here on my phone. Since my back went out the other day, I'm sitting with this cushion behind me over here, and there we go. So this looks bad on my end of it, but at least I got my microphone.
Yeah, it's working. Sounds good.
Let's move. Let's get on with it. What are we talking about today? I don't think there's any news involving Canada and the United States in the world right now.
No, there's none. There's none.
Yes, say, can you see the 51st state? No, we cannot.
California is going to be the 11th province, apparently.
Well, no, probably Washington first, but no, they're very patriotic there, so I doubt that'll happen. Oregon, maybe. Who would go first? Probably Californians. Probably. Or Maine. Oh, yeah. Oh, we would welcome Maine. Quebecers and people from Maine, there's similarities in some of the cultures. And also, of course, that syrup, that maple syrup. It's a big thing in Maine as much as it is in Quebec. Well, maybe not as much. It's bigger in Quebec than anywhere in the world, but you know what I mean. It's a huge thing. So we welcome them as the next Canadian province.
Well, if there's anybody out there that doesn't know what we're talking about, we are referring to some of the comments that President-elect Trump has made in regards to actually making Canada the 51st state of the United States of America and having one gigantic North American piece of land, which I don't think that's going to happen. But, sometimes he's full of rhetoric. And he's
well, he's actually gone on to the point where he's kind of threatened it as using economic might to force it. I'm sorry, what are you going to force economically over the entire Commonwealth? And then obviously the European Union, who also have a huge stake in the Commonwealth in trade, economically speaking. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? So, no, military power will always be there. The only people that could stop the Americans, militarily speaking, right now, might actually be the Americans. But the truth of the matter is they wouldn't be able to sustain any kind of power if most of the world just went against them, which
there's no way that's going to happen.
Well, of course not. But here's the thing that is a little scary is he's actually talking legitimately about wanting to use military might and force his way into Greenland and claim it.
Yeah.
And then they're making these ridiculous claims that they've done polls with Danish people who they claim are 60% saying they don't want Greenland. Why would they care? Why would they care? If they don't live in Greenland, why would they care? They're not like, oh, well, we should get rid of it. It's an eyesore. It's costing taxpayer money. Well, it's really not. They have an entirely different tax system that works for what they're doing.
Well, they're their own entity.
Greenland. They're
their own entity, so to speak. I mean, they're just under the Dutch, but I mean, they're basically their own entity. So
basically, I mean, what they are is very similar to somebody trying to say, I want Puerto Rico and I'm going to go take it.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States of America. United States of America would never allow that. But would it cost them any money to let it go or keep it? It wouldn't really make much of a difference to them in the long run. But the Puerto Rican people, do they want to leave? No. They may not have as much support of the American government as they deserve and should be a state by now, you'd think. But at the same time, they still like the idea that they can come and go as being considered American citizens.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. They can't vote, but they can but they can come and go as they please. And in Greenland, it's the same thing. There's people that there, they know they can go back oh my God, what's the matter with me? Wherever it's from.
I'll be curious to see that since Trudeau has decided to leave office, and I'll be curious to see.
Forced to leave. His decision is not really his. He makes it sound like it is, but they basically told him, get out because we don't want you, and that was from his own party. So
right, I got that. But what I'm saying is, I'm curious to see at what point will you guys elect a new prime minister?
Okay. At this point, not until not until there's another scheduled election, which is where it would have been. However, there's a couple of things that can change that to make it quicker. One, if they take too long to pick a new leader of the party who would become the prime minister by default, by the way, he'd still have to be sworn in and so on. But the governor general, who is a representative of the Queen, basically oversees anything that can or can't happen in the government in that sense, not making laws. We earned the right to do that after 1981. But the speaker, what is it? The Speaker of the House? I can't remember. I have to look this up again, as I'm forgetting a little bit of it myself. But they can call an election. I think it might be the speaker can call an election if it's gone on too long or something like that, right? Also, if they come back and they have the new prime minister, the new leader of the party, then they could still do a vote of no confidence to force an earlier election, or they can say they want to do that to get the new prime minister to go for a new election. So it's most likely that whatever they do, they'll probably be looking to get another election as soon as possible after the new prime minister. But I believe there's going to be a stalling process, because what the Liberal Party is going to try to do is get people to actually start to believe in the Liberal Party again. So just imagine it if Trump had gotten 90% of the vote, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, well, nobody's supporting Democrats anywhere, which came pretty close to almost looking like that for a while. And then you would have to get somebody in there that you would believe in enough for people to start believing in that party. And a lot of that would actually have to be putting a lot of focus on this senator and that governor who have, better reputations, and getting them more in the public eye. And this is pretty much what they're going to try to do. So,
yeah. Well, sorry. Apparently I'm having a sneezing fit. I'm muting myself, so I'm hoping it's not coming through. So yeah, okay. So there's going to be a whole process. I read somewhere, I thought they said March. So like you'd be without. Now I know that if from some of our previous conversations about your prime minister, he doesn't hold quite as significant of power as like the president does here in the States. But I'm just wondering, does it create any real havoc having no prime minister for months?
Well, it would if there wasn't one, but he's not stepped down. He has basically said he could, and that could force an election sooner, or more likely they would still wait on another person to be picked for the party leader anyways. But he has chosen to stay on obviously to use his influence and still have the power until they pick a new prime minister, a successor rather, and then there will be a transfer of power, which will include obviously a complete swearing in. So it's definitely different than how it would be done in the States, because in the States it'd be, if you're leaving, you get out now. You leave, you have to leave, and you would be stepping down immediately, like Nixon did, and then barring having another president, obviously the vice president would become the interim, or at least the president at the time, which actually is how Ford became president, if I remember correctly. And barring that, for any reason, obviously there would be somebody else that would have to take power temporarily if it came to that. But that's not how it works here. We don't have the deputy prime minister suddenly become prime minister. They have to be the leader of the party to lead, because we do not elect a prime minister here. We elect a party by way of how many seats fill the House per party.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing in I think I sent you that video. That lady was talking to, the press and saying like, yeah, we don't elect, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, well, we have, a couple weeks before he's in office, and he's had, he's even, come out in one of the interviews I saw with the press that he's giving Hamas, changing subjects from Canada to Middle East, he's giving Hamas 2 weeks to release all the hostages, or it's going to be really bad, he says, really bad. So,
really bad.
Yeah. Really bad.
I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it.
It's going to be bad.
It's going to be bad.
So, I don't know. I mean, he's going to put himself in all these, different battles. I don't.
He's already spreading himself too thin. It's kind of the reason, and I don't want to compare him to a specific dictator from history, but a certain dictator from history spread himself a lot thin. I'll just say there was a lot of Europe, there was a lot of Africa. He almost got himself into Asia, for crying out loud. He went so far east, but it's just not going to work. You can't do that. He wants to get in there, and here's the thing about it: you get in there and you want to punish Hamas. Okay, you are literally taking the entire Muslim world onto you at this point. You are inviting terrorist acts. Do I think that something should be done? Well, maybe, but maybe part of that is putting a little bit more pressure. And I'm not saying this against anybody, so please don't anybody think that I'm being anti-Semitic, but some pressure needs to be put a little bit on Israel to slow the hell down, because they throw so much at them. And of course, they were attacked first. I get that. Somebody slaps you first, you slap back. And how do you stop a gang war? By going out and getting more gang members and doing it again. That's what it sounds like.
We already have boots on the ground. We're already involved in that. Not obviously at a heavy, factor, but I mean, we have, aircraft carriers out in the ocean, and they've been fighting, sending rockets into Yemen and the Houthis and all that. I mean, so we're already involved, and the Middle East already hates the United States. So
I get that, but that's a completely different story. When they do that, they're basically saying, if he does that, then he's basically might as well just be saying, I agree with Israel and that your country should cease to exist and become part of Israel. And to hell with you and your people and your religion. He might as well just flat out say that. The problem is that and you think about it, all that they ever asked was to be left alone to their own country. They should have their sovereignty. That is literally all they have ever asked for. And they will not be granted it. So this is a part where most of the world should shut the hell up and stay out of it. And except for maybe saying to Israel, give them that chunk of land that you already let them have that was theirs before you got there, and leave them alone.
But it's not. And look, I'm not anybody listening, watching, whatever, I am not any kind of political expert, a Middle East expert.
Well, neither am I.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think it's that he doesn't want Palestine people to live. He's talking about specifically the Hamas regime.
Of course he is.
All the fighting. So, I mean, yes, there are a lot of Palestinians.
Yeah, I agree, but
he's not saying wipe out Palestine. He's
but
saying
you know how big
Hamas.
You know how big that strip of land is, right?
It's tiny.
It's like the size of Manhattan, or is it smaller?
Yeah, it's tiny.
Right. I mean, it's I'm not sure exactly, but it's in that neighborhood of size. Right. So, I mean, what would you do going in there? I mean, it's bad enough. Yeah. There's already women and children that have nothing to do with fighting that are being killed daily.
Oh, yeah. I know.
So
I know.
What, you're going to go in there and wipe out more women and children? Oh, we're going to use strategic bombs on what? There's women and children in every square inch of that spot. They're crowded in there.
If he'd necessarily even do bombs, though. I think he would be more of let's put
soldiers on the ground.
Yeah,
because that's never been a bad thing in a civilized area. No, that's a terrible idea.
But I think that's probably more along the lines of what I would think he would do, because he'd be able to send in, maybe some of the elite forces to be more strategic. Kind of like Bin Laden hunt, when they went in.
Yeah, except that was a huge area and very sparsely populated.
Yeah. I mean, granted,
and 70% of the people that they came across were actually the enemy, legitimately, at the time when they started.
Yeah, well, so, I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's my civilian, uneducated Middle Eastern opinion. I just think that there's no way that yes, we do have much more precision guided munitions when it comes to bombs and rockets and things.
Yeah, like which that. Means nothing when every second building is a school or a restaurant.
Right. Yeah. It's and of course Hamas is using a lot of the public space for hideouts and offices, and
which is kind of shitty on their part, of course. It's human shielding. I'm not saying that they're in the right and Israel's in the wrong. That is not what I'm saying. Just to make sure that anyone understands that. Again, not anti-Semitic. Okay, it's just a situation of you. I mean, and theoretically, if they wanted to, Israel could literally march in there and destroy it. They have the firepower and the manpower to do so, but they would also end up at the wrath of, again, virtually every Muslim country within spitting distance, and that can only go so far. But you know what? We can go on about that forever.
I feel really bad for the Palestinian people, honestly, and it's
I feel bad for all of them there, including the Israelis, because there's innocent people dying there too. It's not one-sided.
But not to the magnitude that these.
No, not to the magnitude. But how many people? You're right, and that's the biggest thing for me. They're basically bordered by the enemy and the sea, right. And it's a little unfair. And it's not like they have a big navy, or something, and an abundance of cruise ships they can evacuate people on.
Right. So, anyways, we'll see how that all pans out. Hopefully, cooler heads prevail, and we can actually put an end to a lot of this fighting. I know they're actually talking about hostage releasing, and some of that's already kind of in the works. So let's hope that all comes to fruition, because.
Yeah, I think one of the best things would be if none of them ever took hostages in the first place.
And
I don't mean that in the bad way, like if you're playing a video game. I just mean you've won the battle, move on, right? Let somebody come and tend to their wounded. Don't take them hostage, for crying out loud. What is that going to prove? It's never done anything. Taking hostages in war has never ended a war. And it's certainly never made battles cease. It's made them slow down just long enough to maybe do a quick exchange and then kill each other again. And it makes no sense, right? Yeah. It's one of the reasons that Japanese didn't take hostages; they only took prisoners. And yes, there's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing so we'll be done with the whole Middle Eastern thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, again, cooler heads prevail, please, and let's just end that whole situation. But one thing I meant to mention is I've been kind of watching some of the Canadian dollar, slide, as I'm sure you're feeling it a lot more in your pocket, obviously, than I am in mine. Well, I'm not feeling it at all in my pocket.
What pocket? The pockets aren't even there anymore.
But I did see when Trudeau announced that he was going to be stepping down that your dollar began to rebound a little bit. So looks like it's not a tremendous amount, but I mean, any improvement is improvement. And as long as it keeps trending back up, then that's probably a good thing.
Well, in all honesty, a lot of people will say that generally doesn't have anything to do with it. It's usually because it's between oil and a few other commodities and stuff like that. And then obviously having to do a lot with how strong the American dollar is on certain markets that depend on how the Canadian dollar is welcomed elsewhere. And that's mostly true. However, if certain leadership is not doing things a certain way, some countries don't believe in certain things and certain bits of trade get done differently. And then there's, tensions and stuff, and people start to lose sight of whether there's value in it. And it's actually completely true that between the Canadian dollar, maybe a couple, the euro and a few other things that are a little bit more well known in the world, people might actually gravitate more towards the American dollar right now than those other ones combined. And that inflates the American dollar more as well. When that goes up, Canadian dollar goes down. There are rare exceptions to that when the Canadian dollar is doing well enough against the American dollar and both are actually valued on the world market. And then you can actually see them both actually kind of go up. But you only notice the Canadian one go up because it's against the American dollar. But that hasn't happened in, 7 years now or something? How long has it been since do you remember when they were at parity several years back? Yeah, that was crazy. It lasted over almost a year where we actually had a more valuable dollar. By a few cents. It was actually slightly more valuable, and it was like, wow, are you kidding me? That was crazy.
Well, I did tell you that you could actually move to Jamaica, and the Canadian dollar still holds much higher value there. You could go in the Caribbean and enjoy your life.
On that note, I could go to all kinds of third world countries, and the Canadian dollar would be like gold.
Right.
Here's 5 cents. What the heck is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and I got $5 and I got $5 American dollars too. Oh my God, sir.
Yeah. Hopefully your economy rebounds with that. It's kind of like when
well, it always does at some point. Oh, there's cords in my face.
Yeah. So
it's just right now, there's it went through heck, for COVID, and then it got worse after COVID was done, and it tried to do a couple of rebounds, but it never made it past a few cents. So, and in all honesty, a lot of it has to do with trade issues with the U.S. So, there's about this whole deficit mumbo jumbo. Apparently, there's some truth to that deficit stuff between the United States and Canada. But here's the thing. In the grand scheme of things, what deficit is actually hurting the United States? When what we're doing is we're giving you more shit for less money.
Well, there's far bigger issues with Asia, China, and all that than there is with Canada.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, absolutely. I mean, like, that's true for both United States, Canada, and almost anywhere else that isn't Asia. Considering almost everything that you bought in 1972 was made in Albuquerque or upstate New York or Pennsylvania or something, or maybe in Toronto or Alberta, right? Or you might send away for something that was made in Japan or England or France. But now it doesn't matter what you get, where the company started, where the company operates now. It's made in China.
Yeah, that's the whole world market is so different now than it used to be. It's
Oh, and it changed so rapidly that at first the joke about, made in Taiwan, which became made in China, which is now thankfully at least switching over to made in, oh God, what is it? The country they're making stuff in? It's not Korea, although they do make stuff, obviously. They're moving it to the other, what is it? Apple's moving a lot of their stuff, and Google's moving
it's not the Philippines, is it?
No, I don't think they would do that because there's apparently a dictatorship.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Right
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can't think of it either. But anyways, they're all doing that and they're moving out of it. But again, you still, if you go even on Amazon and you look at 15 items, right? Chances are they're made in China. Almost all of them, if not all of them. And then, of course, if you just try to look for that cheap something or other, it's almost guaranteed. Then you go on a site like Temu, which is, I'm pretty sure, a Chinese company anyways.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think everything on Temu comes from China.
Well, no, all comes from China. I think what I'm saying is I think it is a Chinese company.
Yeah,
I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is a Chinese company. But whatever. They charge very little money for a lot of garbage, and people love it because
yeah.
People are willing to throw away $30 to get 10 things, and maybe one of them actually works.
Yeah.
So,
well, here's something interesting. Coming back to Canada, another article I found.
I've never actually been, but go on.
This whole situation, I find this to be really odd. At any rate, so in 2025, Canada is going to be opening its first ever border pre-clearance site in the U.S. So now heading
I thought
into
it said
Canada,
biggest. Is their first ever?
First ever. So now heading into Canada, they can cross through customs before you even get into Canada. So,
wow.
but now we're talking about all this other stuff. So it's like, what? I don't. Again, it's like, what? That doesn't.
And here's the weird thing about this is what perfect timing this is, right? Is it opens up as Donald Trump is coming and he's thinking, okay, great, we can clear everybody to go back to Canada. What is? We're not going to be allowed to go into the U.S. pretty soon because he's going to say we're all terrorists or something. I mean, it's crazy. I'm sorry. But like he paints Canada to be Canada's had security issues. Absolutely true. A new prime minister probably takes care of that because that's one of the things that should be addressed. Because we should be actually asking somebody what your bloody name is before we let them come in here and be a Canadian citizen.
Yeah. Well, apparently this started back in 2017. They signed it in 2015. So it's been in, what now? 11 years now.
Now, where is that one? That's at the other end of you're in. Oh, it's in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So they're not putting that on the other end of the Gordie Howe Bridge. Wow.
I'm trying to see here. It says,
I thought they were putting.
It says it allows travelers bound for Canada through Quebec, New York border crossing to clear customs while still stateside.
Okay. I honestly thought that you were going to say that was where on the American side of the Gordie Howe Bridge.
No. I don't know where the Gordie Howe Bridge comes across that, so I don't know.
Detroit, Windsor.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, no, it's not Detroit.
Which would have made, actually, be honest with you, a lot of sense because it's this massive new, holy crap, suspension bridge over the Detroit River and everything, and they've been talking about this forever, and it just about almost finished. And I thought, well, that would make a lot of sense to actually have it there,
Yeah, so apparently there's US sites in Canada already. And this is the first Canadian one in the US.
Yeah,
Didn't
I'm
know
not
that.
sure where the U.S. ones are. I'm guessing probably either Windsor or just north of Windsor, or I can't remember the name of the town. There's another crossing.
It
Uh,
doesn't say. It just says
it
like
could
the
be the
US
Quebec
sites
crossing.
in Canada. It doesn't say where.
Oh, you see, now I have to ask Gemini that question. Oh, okay.
But, to facilitate the free flow of legitimate persons and goods, including animals and plants across the border.
Plants? You're not allowed to
Yeah.
take plants across the border?
Well, you can now, apparently.
What the fuck? Well, oh, yeah, okay, let's just bring some food. It's the first question they ask you. Do you have any flora or fauna or plants or food? Do you get any food
Yeah.
with you? Do you have any plants?
Yeah.
You can't take that with you, sir, unless it's like a McDonald's hamburger. You're allowed to keep that, right? But you can't bring fruits and vegetables with you over the border.
Yeah.
And for, by the way, if anybody's wondering, most people should know this, but if you've never traveled across the border, I was going to say on foot. If you've never traveled across the border by car, personal vehicle, or even on a bus or something like that, there is a complete legitimate reason why you're always asked almost anywhere in the world if you have any fruit or plant life or whatever on you. And that's because there are diseases and insects and stuff that are native to where you brought them from that may not be present where you're going. And you're introducing something that doesn't exist there, and it becomes a problem. That's why.
I found where one of the locations is. Apparently, it's not far from this Canadian one because they say that the Cannon Corners border station will be closed during the construction during this project, and it's Havelock, Quebec.
Yeah. So that's mostly people in upstate New York and Quebec going to do some business with each other. The rest of the country has no idea who they are. I never heard of it. But I'm guessing that because I doubt that that's the busiest place.
Probably not.
What I don't think though is I don't think there's a pre-clearance in Niagara Falls because I've been past that border too many times to count, and I don't think I've ever seen anything other than the gate before the bridge. It's like you're coming out and you Canadian going the other way, American, and I could be wrong, but it would be pre-clearance has to be a pretty good size. Otherwise, you're just bottlenecking before you go anyways, and it's the same thing.
Well, I better get up there soon because there might be a wall that's now separating.
And Canada's going to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. It's going to go right through the middle of Niagara Falls, too. We only get half of the water.
Yes, right. Well, technically, you get a little bit more than half the water. A lot of people, this is a stupid fact.
Yeah, I was just being general. I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't a specific comment. Live.
I know. It's just a ridiculous fact. I do this sometimes, but everybody knows. Okay, Horseshoe Falls is almost entirely within Canada, but that's only true for actually if you're looking at the outside of it, because the border actually goes along the water and comes in. So about 75% of Horseshoe Falls is technically in Canada. So if you take that, roughly 25-ish% plus the Bridal Falls and American Falls, you're actually getting a pretty large chunk of the damn water on your side.
Yeah. Well,
although I don't know how you get a chunk of water.
Yeah.
All right.
Keep scooping it up in the bucket.
Well, once it freezes and on the sides of the waterfalls in the winter. That's another sight to behold. Again, you've never seen it.
No, I mean, I definitely want to get up there for sure. Obviously, who knows what that's going to look like,
Well, not to mention any
coming
names
in, but-
or exactly what the issue is, but has the one issue that may be preventing you from coming in July been resolved yet?
No.
Oh my goodness. Well, maybe you should smack the issue upside the head.
Yeah. Well, and I actually don't know if I'm going to have, well, I probably won't have the time because apparently my wife and the kids have scheduled a Disney family trip in June.
Oh, good Lord. But that's in June.
Yeah, but it's taking 6 of my vacation days away.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. We'll see. Nothing's been done on his end anyways.
Disney. What the hell with Disney? Canada's Wonderland. It's bigger. Oh, wait. Did you say Disneyland or Disney World?
It's World. Yeah.
Okay, that is bigger. Yeah, that's bigger.
So at any rate, we'll see. He hasn't said anything, and it might even be, I could get up for a weekend trip or something. I'd still do that, even if it's not for the whole race weekend or whatever. But I haven't heard anything yet, so we'll see. It's still up in the air. I still have a few days left, so I mean, if I could maybe make a weekend trip work or something, I'd do that because it's not a long flight. So, but okay, so we're done with geopolitical stuff. I want to move on to a little bit of technology because I read an article today that actually I was really kind of excited to read it. It's about the S25 Ultra that's coming out in a couple weeks. So let's see. Am I going to watch the inauguration or Galaxy Unpacked? I think I'm going to watch Galaxy Unpacked.
I think I agree with you while I eat a Christmas cookie.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I think they have a surprise on the S25 Ultra, and that apparently it's going to support the newest version of QI charging. It's going to have a built-in magnet in the back like the iPhones do, and it's going to support 25-watt wireless charging.
Right.
That's the first time I read that. Right now, it supports 15 watts. So that would be awesome. I would dig that. Like, that would be great.
It's probably
I use
very
magnet
likely
chargers all the time. So that's like a huge
it's probably very likely that the Pixel 10 will also do such a.
I don't know why it's taking so long. Because I love that feature. Obviously, honestly, of the iPhone,
well,
I love that feature.
In all honesty, nobody can figure out why Google didn't implement that in the Pixel 9 series since it was pretty much ready.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, not an Apple guy. I don't know when the iPhone came out with that magnetic, QI charging capability, but it's been a long time, and I don't know why anybody else hasn't figured that out or done it, because I love magnetic wireless charging. Well, I never, I say never. It's very seldom I plug my phone up with a cable. It's usually always on a wireless charger in my car, at my desk at my office, and my nightstand downstairs. I even have a charger up here I could put on if I needed to. So, I mean, and now that it supports 25 watts, that's going to be a pretty fast charging wireless. So,
well, for wireless, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'm happy with the 15 watts I get. Or is it 15? Yeah, I think it's only 15 watts. Yeah. 15 watts that I get just putting it on this thing. I mean, I think Pixel 9 and probably even the Pixel 8 too before it, or at least Pixel 9 anyways, can support faster wireless charging. But again, it's not this magnetic thing, right? So,
yeah.
And I don't have a charger that can do that right now. But, the Pixel 10 will probably have that too. I would hope. Don't know that for sure yet.
What's the wired rate on the 9?
45.
Okay, so that's what the S25 will have, is 45.
It's
going to have the Snapdragon 8 Elite.
It doesn't charge. It doesn't charge all the way to 45. It only maxes out around 39 or something like that. But that's common for the max not to be hit.
Well, right, yeah. So it looks like they're going to have a 12 gig with 256 gig storage and a 16 gig with 512 gig storage, and then 16 gigs with 1 terabyte. I don't understand the RAM difference with the storage difference, because the storage has nothing to do with RAM. So why would they just put 16 across the board? That doesn't, I guess, just to maybe keep it cheaper, I suppose.
Oh, because that's it. But here's the thing. It's not cheaper enough when you think about it for the difference in what that RAM actually costs. Right. The RAM that they put into this is incredibly inexpensive today.
And you're talking 4 gigs. 4 gigs. Yeah. I mean, it'd be different if it's like, oh yeah, it's half as much or something, maybe. But 4 gigs, it's like,
yeah. And I mean, this isn't like, 2001 where, your buddy says, oh yeah, I can get you a deal on some RAM. I can get you a whole 500 megabytes of RAM right now for only $185.
Yeah.
It's like the RAM. I mean, and they're buying it in bulk too. It's like, it's not as if, it's like if we could buy the same RAM at the consumer store right now to put in a different phone or something. Like you can a computer or a laptop.
They're not going to Best Buy and picking out all they got on the shelf.
That 16 gigabytes of RAM would probably only cost $45. It's costing Google or Samsung or whoever. Samsung probably not. They're probably making them themselves. It's their own RAM probably. But if they were buying it, it would probably only be costing them about $4 or something. It's like maybe 10. So add that extra 4, and it's probably 50 cents extra or something. It doesn't make any sense to me, but this is a marketing thing.
Oh, yeah.
And 100%. There's more people, they bitch and gripe and complain, and I totally get the bitching, gripe, and complaining. I do it too. But at the same time, there are businesses, and they are in it to make money. People say, oh, they don't care about us. Of course they don't. They're there to make money, so that the people in charge of it can go home and spend that money with their families. They don't care about us, and nor should they. It doesn't matter, right? Now, there's exceptions to that rule. People like Bill Gates who give his own money away. But he's not giving it to everybody. It's not like he walks up to my door and says, hey, man, here. That's not happening.
No. So apparently they've confirmed some screen specs, which kind of match the S24 Ultra. So it's not a huge, it's not anything new, but it's 2600 peak brightness, supports HDR10, which that's same as the S24 Ultra.
Yeah. Well, it supports more than HDR10. It should be HDR10 plus. For sure.
Well, yes, it's plus. Yes. And I guess it's as far as size is concerned, it's marginally. They say it's. See how they word it. It's marginally taller, narrower, thinner, and lighter than the S24. So we'll see. I did see a actual picture of the screen though, and the bezels on it are like tiny,
razor thin.
Oh yeah,
and which is where the phone, which is where the phone is thinner. It's
well, it's a true flat screen.
Exactly. Everybody's finally decided, no, Samsung was wrong. Sorry. You started a trend, and we all hated it.
Yeah, and I guess in April they're going to be releasing a 4th S series, and it's the S25 Thin. That's interesting.
Oh my! No, yeah. S25 Thin. I have a feeling that might do a little bit better than the Pixel. What would it called in Pixel 9? What is their budget one that they put in halfway through the year? Oh, I forgot.
Is it E or S or something like that?
No, it's neither of those. Oh God, you know what? I don't remember, but you know what I mean. Their budget one. They used to just all be, they'd make it and they'd be plastic, but now they actually make them a little bit better than that. You end up with the same processor as the flagship and the same cameras, but you just lose out on something else like certain types of features or a couple of hardware points on it or something like that. So they make the budget phone only a few, well, I guess for Google, probably $400 or $500, and that's what they consider budget nowadays. But in all fairness, a few years ago, it would have been a $280 phone, right? Same with the Samsung budget phone. Yes. But nonetheless, they have. I forgot what I was going to say now. They change things so rapidly with it.
Yeah, I'm trying to look here and see if I can find some specs on it because I was curious. I meant to look it up beforehand, and I forgot to look it up.
What?
About what the S25 thin specs are. I don't know that they have a lot of information on it yet because they weren't even 100% sure they were going to come out with it, but it's been confirmed that, Samsung's like, yeah, it's going to happen. It's just not going to happen until like April.
Is that going to be a budget phone or some phenomenally weird thing they're trying to corner the market on?
No, I think it's because Apple is working on a thin line. So
what do you mean by thin? No, do they mean that like, oh, it's going to have less on it, or thin as in they're going to make like some razor thin phone that is absolutely a huge mistake?
Let's see here. That's what I'm trying to find out. So it looks like it's going to have a 50 plus 50 plus 50 rear camera around the back. Whatever, that sounds weird. Yeah, this doesn't really give me any specs. I don't know if they know the specs on it yet, but I mean, I'm taking it to be that it's going to be like super thin. Much to me in my mind, I'm looking at it like, the older iPhones that were like the minis.
Yeah.
Maybe something, I don't know if it's going to be height and width difference. I would imagine it would be. I can't imagine it being the same big candy bar. Like
I'm picturing something like a Motorola Razr, but in a candy bar style and with the battery life of a gnat.
Yeah.
like your phone rings and you go, hello? Oh, damn. It's off.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of information about it as far as the true specs on it. So
are you sure? Are you sure you're not reading a pre-April 1st joke or something?
No. It's been confirmed by Samsung.
Has there been any pre-April 1st jokes?
Only that one I sent you about the nuclear egg for your house. That whole parody there. That was hilarious, man. I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, what? And I was like, wait a minute. E-Corp. Oh, come on. Or whatever it was. Not E-Corp. Enron. I was like, okay, I get what they're doing here. But they was elaborate, though. They did videos. They have websites. They have social media. I mean, they have it all for this nuclear egg.
It's crazy because the first thing that pops in my head is what the fuck would the consumer do with the nuclear waste? You're going to ask them they have to fill out all these government forms to have somebody come over to their damn house to pick up the nuclear waste. And it would cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Oh my God.
So anyway.
And of course that would be if any government ever licensed it. I thought that was kind of hilarious because I looked like it was about the size of a couple of PS5s taped together,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay, I don't know how much energy that thing could actually generate, and exactly what turbine would it be turning for the electricity.
Yeah,
that's the thing that people don't understand how nuclear generators work. They don't generate shit. They just heat up, and the water moves through a pipe, and the water movement turns a fucking turbine. That's what happens. Yeah. It doesn't. Magical energy and electricity doesn't just come out of the uranium. That's not how it works.
Well, yeah, and I think that's kind of part of the joke too. But Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Again, they went all out with social media videos.
It
That's why I
runs.
said for anybody out there that's watched Mr. Robot, it reminded me when you would see those commercials in Mr. Robot about E Corp coming out with all their stuff. That's immediately what I thought. I was like when I saw the big E, because it looks just like E Corp in Mr. Robot, how it's got that big fat blocky, crooked E. So I thought that was kind of funny because that's what it reminded me of. I don't know if anybody else got that, but I immediately went to E Corp at Mr. Robot, this evil company that, that's the whole premise of that show. Since you haven't watched it, is they're, it's like they're hacktivists, where they're hackers that are these activists that are trying to take down this evil company called E Corp.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know when you say
really
that
good.
though, when you say it like that though, it kind of makes me think a lot of iRobot. I mean the movie, not the book.
Yeah.
It because it kind of was. It started originally with one company making toys, and they decided to make this, and then they got the robot, and then the blah, and they sort of went through a history of it quickly, but they glossed over it a lot in the movie, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And the company basically was in charge of everything. The robots did everything, right?
Yeah.
So they basically ran everything. So every new product had to be through their company. Everything you got was through their company. So it makes me think of that, but probably not to the same level as this E Corp thing. But
yeah, well, it's funny because when they made that TV series, they actually was being consulted by a previous jailed black hat that now works for the government. Makes sense, right? And so he was telling like the producers, like, no, if you want this to be real, here's blah, blah, blah. Like, they're all using this particular version of Linux, on laptops. And I think they had to kind of be careful too, to not like, oh, here's how you actually do some hacking. Watch this TV show.
Yeah.
Because it was like legit stuff, man. Like it was legit.
It's funny. It's funny that you happen to say it like that, and black hat and it's like just, I guess, ironically, for some reason in the last couple of days I've watched a number of videos, probably for nostalgia's sake, on phone freaking. So, wait, now you're old enough to know what phone freaking is, but you don't know. Wow!
I'm not familiar with that terminology. I don't. Maybe
phone freaking was the original hacking. Maybe Steve Wozniak knew all about that stuff. That's where they actually would take the phones, because everything was analog and on the old system with the old trunk lines and everything. And what they would do is they would go to dial a phone. It would have to be a 1-800 number, so they wouldn't get charged, because they're trying to get long distance for free. Right. So they would pick up the phone, they would dial the 1-800 number, and the second it starts to connect, they use a tone that's exactly 2600 megahertz, which would signal it to cut off on the other end of the trunk. But it would leave the trunk open on their end, indicating that they're still on. In other words, the system still thinks that they're still on that free 1-800 line. So they can now dial in the numbers, and on the other end of the trunk, it'll go, okay, we'll connect you. And they don't pay for the call. And they did thousands upon hundreds of thousands of times this has been done. They totally managed to like huge amounts of fraud.
Wow.
Fraudulent call. Yeah, went on for years.
I might have heard about it, but I don't recall that. But that's funny. And of course, now long distance
if you think about it, this might even come to you. Yeah, this might ring a bell though. One of the things that made it much easier was when somebody discovered that the Captain Crunch whistle that came in the cereal boxes in the early 70s. Actually, if you because it had a two-tone whistle, right? So you whistle, right? If you covered up the one, it would be exactly the one hole, rather. It would be exactly 2600 megahertz, precise. So you would basically dial 1-800 something, and then you would hear it go into your tone again, and then you just start dialing your number.
Is that the same box of cereal you got your decoder watch in?
No, the decoder watch. You didn't get a coder. Why would you get a decoder watch?
I don't know. I'm just saying. They're always coming out with stuff like that.
No, it's a bosun's whistle. That's why it was Captain Crunch. It was a bosun's whistle.
There was some kind of like decoder ring too that was they started. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But anyway, that's hilarious.
That's why you had to cover up one. Right?
You don't get stuff in cereal anymore. It's except you get less, pay more. It's like,
and would you believe there were some people that could actually whistle 2600 hertz? Like they knew how. Like probably. Pitch perfect. But anyways, oddly on that note, obviously I never did it. I was just a kid. I didn't really know anything about phone freaking until later. But there was another way to actually get phone calls to be made from a pay phone, regardless of whether it was long distance or local. And that was some pay phones. It didn't work necessarily on all. It depended on the system that was being used. But for a long time, it did work. And that was you pick the receiver up off of the payphone, and as soon as you start tapping, because it was considered pulse dialing, that would basically be perceived as a pulse. So if the number was like 453 0000, you'd basically go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3, and then you'd have to go 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 4 times, and it would connect, and then it would ring the phone, and you have your phone call. No money put into the thing.
How about when you called 8675309?
I've actually tried because it still worked when that song was out. I did try that, but there was no number in the city I was living in at the time that had that number. There was no 867 numbers in that city at the time. You can, however, call that number in a lot of jurisdictions and actually reach someone. Yeah. So. I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. Don't do it. That's not nice. That's not a nice thing to do. Don't do it.
They probably took all those phone numbers out of the books. Like, we're never using this number ever again.
No, I actually tried calling one just a couple of years ago, and it's for the hell of that night. Oh, wow. Guy answered, and I went, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong number."
That's hilarious.
Well, the biggest difference, of course, is that there's an area code in front of it now, obviously. Right. So you can't just dial 8675309 anymore, nor can you ever forget that number.
Yeah.
I just realized I actually punned that. I didn't even mean to.
That's hilarious. Well, on that note, I think it's this is kind of wrapping up. We're at an hour. Time flies when you're talking about shit. But listen, so obviously some technical difficulties. We'll try to get it wrapped up and fixed up by next week if we can. Might not be able to, but still that works out just fine if it's not. We hope everybody's had a great start to their 2025, and let's all hope that after January 20th the world does not implode.
Or explode.
Yes. So, but thanks for tuning in, and we'll have our technical stuff resolved next week. And to sign out, I am Robert from the U.S.
And I am Winter Scruffy Lionel from Canada.
Peace out. See you next week.